The two most popular portable cameras currently on the market for online content creation. Not just the most popular cameras, but also the most popular camera brands. The RX100 Mark V versus the G7X. Which one works best as a portable online video camera? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Small cameras can absolutely be a huge benefit for those of us that create constant quality, for some of us that's debatable, online content. They're small, portable, but have lots of features that means we don't have to give up too much image quality or have them be too difficult to use to get the benefit of also not having to bring along a whole bunch of gear. You know, these little things are just very easy to throw in a pocket and just start recording. And the two current pinnacles of this design philosophy are the RX100 Mark V plus the newer 5 Alpha and the G7X Mark II. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a photographer nor am I a professional videographer. I make these YouTube videos and home videos, so those are the specs and features that I'll be covering today. Speaking of those features and capabilities that are most important to me, I separate those into buckets, sometimes called columns. It's always some kind of fun thing that I try to call them, but there are 4 that I think are the most important for those of us creating online video of any kind, platform agnostic. First up, video quality. Now, both of these cameras do have a 1-inch sensor built inside of them, which means for point and shoots, they've got pretty legitimate sensor sizes. I mean, those are big sensors for tiny cameras. But the recording modes and resolutions are not the same across the two cameras. The RX100 Mark V can record at up to 4K 30 frames per second. That 4K is downsampled from 5K across the whole sensor, and it can do 1080p-ish up to 240 frames per second, which is fantastic as a slow motion ability for this kind of camera. The G7X Mark II can do 1080p up to 60 frames per second. That's about it. It is lacking on the resolution department. Both have built-in lenses. I guess I still haven't found an interchangeable lens point and shoot. That would be really cool though. There is a little bit of a difference on this too, and it is pretty important when you consider what you could use these cameras for. The Sony has a 24-70 equivalent zoom, which is 1.8 at the wide end and 2.8 at the zoom, whereas the Canon is a 24-100 equivalent zoom with a similar 1.8 at the wide, 2.8 at the zoom, which means this can get a farther reach if you need, if you want to zoom in farther, the Canon will get you farther than the Sony. When it comes to autofocus, which is a huge part of actually having usable footage afterwards, again, there are some big differences. The Sony has a phase detection autofocus system, which does a great job of gaining and holding focus once it's locked down. This part is kind of surprising because the Canon has decent autofocus, but it doesn't have Canon's leading dual pixel autofocus, which kind of sucks. Actually, I did some research and I don't know what kind of autofocus system the G7X has because all of the websites I looked at, they don't say whether it's phase detection, contrast based, what's in here. So it works okay in my testing, but I can't tell you what's actually in there. Image quality wise, both cameras do a pretty good job, especially with that 1-inch sensor. And I would hope so because these are not cheap cameras. The G7X runs about $650 brand new, and the RX100 runs about $900 brand new. Those are like whole recording setup prices with camera, audio, lighting, all that. Like, these are not cheap. That's also not saying there isn't a reason to spend that much money on a camera. If it's a quality value added addition, it might be worth it. There are reasons that there are expensive cameras out there because they are worth it to certain people. Canon G7X Mark II looks better when recording skin tones to me. The Digic 7 processor and the Canon sensor combined do a great job, which is, frankly, why this is such a popular vlogging camera, because when you're vlogging, you want your skin to look good, right? I think the Sony looks technically better. That 4K looks so good, even if it can only record it in 5 minutes at a time. It doesn't do as good with skin tones in 1080p, but it's not as bad as Sony gets a really bad rap for skin tones. I don't find it that bad, but the Canon definitely is better. The real image quality value in the RX, in my opinion, is all of the slow motion options. I used this camera for a long time, primarily as my B-roll beast of a camera. The slow motion combined with its close focusing distance really allows you to get some unique viewpoints, and if you do product stuff or you do YouTube stuff where you want to get some cool B-roll, this is one of the perfect cameras for that. But don't take my word for it, let's hop outside real quick and do a quick video/vlogging test. Welcome to the vlogging test of the Canon G7X versus the Sony RX100 Mark V. Let's pop that up, on. Man, I love just how light and easy these things are to use. Okay, record. There we go. Vlogging test begin. Whoa. Okay, so again, this is the vlogging test of the Sony RX100 Mark V and the Canon G7X Mark II. These are both set to their, their standard picture profile. They're both set to 1080p 30. They're both set to auto ISO, and they both have their ND filters on, which is, it's just so incredibly, like, having two cameras that have ND filters just naturally, like, that's important. Like, I mean, if you even look at just like the camera I was just using, my Fuji X-T3 for this out and about video, like, I had to screw on the ND filter because it's kind of bright out here, but it's kind of not, and it's just so useful. I wish every camera had built an ND filter. So this is the video and the audio coming out of the Canon G7X, audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3, and this is the video and audio coming out of the Sony RX100 Mark V, audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3. They both have my face in their autofocus boxes, so this should be a pretty good test of their autofocus. Plus, they're both at 1.8, which is about as shallow depth of field as you're gonna get on them. And yeah, I like these cameras. I do like the screen on the G7X much better than the screen on the RX100 Mark V. If you can see those, it looks much nicer. Like, it just looks nicer. But yeah, this is the video quality. Man, it is freezing out here today. Like, it's supposed to be getting nicer, and it's not snowing or anything, but it's just like, it's miserable. This is a miserable test, but it's for you guys. It's for you guys, and that's what makes it important, right? Man, it's cold. But yeah, this is the image quality and the audio quality you can expect to get if you get one of these cameras on your own. Yeah, it does kind of look, just from looking at the screens right here, that the RX is holding a little more detail in the highlights, whereas the G7X is kind of like, the highlights are kind of blown out, but it looks like the skin color, like my face, looks better on the G7X than on the Sony. We'll have to check that in post, but yeah. Okay, vlogging test over, back inside for the studio test. And this is the indoor/studio test of the two cameras. So this is the image quality of the Sony RX100 Mark V, and this is the image quality out of the Canon G7X Mark II. Now, they're both set to their widest aperture, which is 1.8. I both have them set to their widest zoom range. They're both set to auto ISO. They're both set to auto everything else. But yeah, this is the image quality you can expect to get out of these two cameras if you wanted to get one of these yourself. Now, the audio you're hearing is coming out of the GH5 because, again, one of the negatives about cameras like these is they don't have audio input jack. So if you're going to use one of these as like a studio or indoor camera, which with that 1.8, you absolutely could do this, as opposed to something like a camcorder that might have a 2.8 at the wide end. I find that those don't work as well. So this is the image quality you could get. I think both cameras are great indoors. I'm very excited to see how this image quality looks. Again, I think the Canon has the better skin tones. The Sony has the better technical image quality, but you're gonna have to balance those two. But yeah, this is the image quality. This is what you can expect to get. Let's check it out. I'm excited, so back to the video. Image quality is one thing, but what matters most to me is how easy is it to get that decent, reliable image quality. Both of these camera bodies are tiny. I mean, that's part of the landscape, having a point and shoot camera, right? I mean, there's only so much physical buttons that you can fit on this. This is a benefit in that it'll fit in your pocket, but it's a negative in that you don't get all the normal manual controls that you might be used to in a bigger DSLR or mirrorless style camera. I personally think the G7X Mark II is the way easier camera body to use. I mean, it's not even really that close. The dual movie mode exposure compensation button on top gives you a little extra manual control, but the real big benefit when it comes to ease of use is the rear touchscreen. They both do have flip up screens so you can see yourself while recording, but this is so much better. This is good in two ways. One, yes, you can tap your way through the settings, which is really nice, and it's very responsive, which I'm a big fan of, being able to change settings of your camera while you're in front of it. But two, and even more important, the menu system was designed by Canon, which means it's real simple, and intuitively laid out. One of the negatives about the original RX100 Mark V, which this is, it is kind of fixed on the 5 Alpha, but that's the older Sony menu system, which can be a bit of a struggle if you aren't Sony savvy. And yes, if you're going to use the older Sony cameras, you need to be Sony savvy. It's pretty hard to get the Sony going if you want to focus on anything other than the center or use face tracking in 1080p when you're in front of the camera. Since it doesn't have a touchscreen, you've got to do a lot of button presses to work through the same things that are just, you just tap and you're done on the G7X. I mean, that is so useful, and I will never understate how important an easy to use camera body is. But in my mind, there are two parts of ease of use. Before you hit record, things are pretty chill and you've got time, but after you hit record, the pressure's on and it suddenly becomes business time. So once you hit record, how easy are the two cameras to use? And honestly, I gotta give it to the Canon. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the RX100 Mark V. It's one of my favorite cameras of all time. I even made a whole video on why everybody should buy one. Like, this is one of the most used cameras on my channel. But when it comes to using it after hitting record, the G7X is just so much easier, and a lot of that is to do with the touchscreen. Like, when you want to use the RX100 Mark V, you have to dig through Sony's older menu system, which sucks. Like, it's hard to get everything you want. It's kind of fiddly, which is a bad thing, as we already talked about, to get all of the functionality set up. But that also moves into, once you hit record, do you have a little setting off? Do you have to change something? You can do that from the touchscreen on the G7X Mark II, where you can't do that on the RX100 Mark V. So I do find that the G7X is just so much easier to use both before and after you hit record. Like, touchscreens are incredibly important, and I wish more camera manufacturers would start including them, because that is the future. Like, as more people start using their cell phones for everything, we are starting to expect that in our technology. And yeah, the RX100 is a little harder to use. I do find, as we already mentioned, that it has a little bit better video specs, but you want easy to use, you got to go with the Canon. Canon cameras just really crush the competition, and basically when it comes to mirrorless, when it comes to DSLR, when it comes to point and shoot, Canon really is on top for ease of use. Okay, back inside before my hands freeze and fall off. And we're back. So we've got the image quality, and we know how easy, or relatively easy, I guess, that image quality is to get. But if you want to upgrade that image quality, what does the camera's upgrade path / ecosystem look like? And again, like we mentioned on Monday, there's not much you can do to upgrade these cameras. They are self-contained systems that don't really need anything else, nor can you really add that much to it. They do have cages for the RX100 Mark V, which can really allow you to add some of those external things to it. But if you do want to upgrade the quality of these cameras, I would recommend lighting, audio, external upgrades that can make even more of an impact on your video, not just for these cameras, but for everything. A lot of times, to get better video quality, you need to invest in things outside of the camera body. Again, it's so much easier to edit these videos when the sections just don't have that much in them. I like them. Point and shoot, we're the everyday point and shoot dad from now on. But at the end of the day, so what, right? So which of these timeless famous YouTube vlogging cameras do I recommend? As much as I like ease of use as a concept, and I do strive to get that in all of my gear, I think the RX100 Mark V is the better camera, and if you can find it used, I bought this one for a very low priced open box at Best Buy. I think it was like 500 bucks, and I've been using this thing for months. This is one of the best value cameras in the world. I've got a whole video where I spend the whole time trying to convince you why you should get one of these, because it's fantastic. You can use this thing as a B-roll camera, macro camera, 4K vlogging camera, slow motion camera. This is one of the most versatile, high-end cameras currently on the market, even after all these years since it's been released. The G7X just can't, the G7X 1080p 60 doesn't stand up to it. If that's all you need, then yes, this is okay, but I don't know, for the price and the features, you get so much more from the RX100 Mark V than you get from the Canon G7X Mark II. Thanks for watching.